opportunity to participate in person and virtual. It's
Yes.
wonderful. It's
Yes.
wonderful.
To everyone, including our staff.
Yeah. And I see everyone, hear everyone too.
We're just waiting for our clerk to give us a thumbs up that we're good to go.
Well, welcome commissioners, and over to you, Chair Harrington.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Welcome everyone to the Tuesday, September 27th, 2022 afternoon Washington County Board of Commissioners work session. The first item on our agenda is board and leadership communication. So which commissioner would like to go first? 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay, I'll go. I just got it. Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to once again be back here. So I'm looking forward to our work session today. This last week, I had a coffee with Mayor Beatty and Commissioner Fye. We do this regularly, and we're at this point, we're planning a tour with Commissioner Fye, and Mayor Beatty is putting it together for Commissioner Fye and myself. And we're going to be looking at just different developments in the Beaverton area. Perhaps Nafisa will want to expand on that. ERMDAC meeting, we discussed the pedestrian and biking improvements process and received a report on traffic safety from the Sheriff's Office. We're provided a service request update from Todd Watkins. The Commissioner Fye, the chair, and myself attended a governor's reception last Thursday, and it was great to see female legislators there. It was also an interesting opportunity to see commissioners in a venue that wasn't AOC, frankly. So that was nice to see commissioners from around the state. I attended the Housing Our Community, a year in review event on Friday. I did not go to the first event in the Forest Grove area or in Hillsborough area, but I did, excuse me, Forest Grove, right? That's where it was. But I did go to the event in Hillsborough, and I went to the event in Beaverton. I just want to extend my congratulations to the team for putting together a really good event. It was a great opportunity for us to get the message out beyond Washington County about the work that's being done, the partnerships that have been built, and frankly, the difference that we're making in people's lives, and at the same time making sure that we're thanking the voters for providing the opportunity to do this work. Yesterday, I attended a meeting with OMPA. It's OMPA. It's the Oregon Media Production Association. It's a business association for people who create media throughout Oregon, and they had some really interesting data on the impact the industry has on the economy of our state. So they reached out to me, and like I said, it was very interesting. It may be an interesting topic for, I haven't even talked to Matt about this, to Matt Craigie, to have the same type of presentation for all of the economic development managers throughout Washington County, but it was very interesting. The chair and I met yesterday with the Preschool for All Washington County group, and we have not been in touch with them since we delivered the message that the board was not going to be referring this measure. So we did get an update. Are you? Do you want me to go ahead and...
Our decision was we wouldn't be asking our county administrator to have staff scope the idea out in advance of a referral.
Yes, and we stuck with that when they were asking us to even move forward without that. Yep. Okay. So are you comfortable if I outline what their plan is, or?
Absolutely.
Okay, so they are, it was very informative. They are drafting an ordinance between October and December of this year. And then in January of 2023, they're going to start collecting signatures to get the ordinance on the ballot for the fall of 2024. So that's their outline. They're going to need like everybody, 10,000 signatures, and they're anticipating going for 15,000 to meet the 10,000 quota. In July and August of 24, they expect to have a kickoff campaign. So we don't know the details of the ordinance, and the two of us encouraged Bridget and Olga to keep us and the rest of the board informed about what their plans are. So this week I have a meeting with Representative McLean, attending with all of you, our town hall on Wednesday night, and also the district AOC meeting. On Thursday night, there's a Salzman Senior Housing Project groundbreaking that I'll be attending as well. So that's my report.
Good. So heads up on that, if staff could ensure that the media release is updated to reflect that Commissioner Treese will be participating in that groundbreaking, I'd really appreciate it.
Got it.
Why is it not?
Correct.
I don't, if the meet,
Hence my mentioning it gracefully.
thank you.
Nafisa and Roy.
Actually, Vice Chair Willie, why don't you go ahead?
I try and put them in the spot. Last week attended the GPI Economic Summit, which is their annual event. This is a little bit of a scaled down event. It used to be all morning through lunch, but this one went for a couple of hours. The theme was Beyond Bureaucracy, Leadership in Action, and they had their guest speaker, which was not in person. It was on Zoom because she had COVID, which was the mayor of Oakland. But she did a great job answering a bunch of questions, communicating a really strong message. She took office in 2015, I believe. And they must have term limits, or she's decided not to run another term, but I believe she is going to be done at the end of 22.
Did you say Cleveland or
Oakland.
Oakland? Oakland.
I hope I said Oakland.
You did.
Good.
Thank
It
you.
was Oakland.
Thank you.
Yeah, Libby Schaff. And she talked about crime, specifically shootings in Oakland when she took office in 2015, and what she did to basically cut those number of shootings in half in a couple of years. And she talked about the partnerships that she put together between public safety and a variety of other organizations. And it was very successful. Unfortunately, they've kind of increased again as we've gotten through the pandemic, similar to what the city of Portland has experienced. And certainly she had similar issues that we did, both in shootings, but in homelessness, traffic, and a variety of other things. So yeah, we can learn from each other, and certainly from the city of Oakland. Also sit in on the Juvenile Crime Prevention and Advisory Committee, JCPAC. They have hired a consultant to put a job description on Lynn's position. As you know, she's retiring, and so it was a interesting dialogue. Just a number of people and organizations were on the call, and we came up with a pretty extensive list. It's pretty impressive what not only Lynn, but what that department gets done. And so we look forward to that job search. As all of you know, we had a wind event a couple weeks ago. This past week, PGE had a wrap-up conversation with a number of the partners that they had. And it was really good to hear what Troy had to say. I wanted to congratulate them for the amount of communication that they did to all of the partners around Washington County, certainly around the region, not just Washington County, because this was, as you know, wind comes down the gorge and comes across the valley and gets to us. Sometimes it's a little bit lighter, but certainly they were taking lots of precautions, and we'll certainly hear more, I think, about how this will impact their policies in the future for certain winter events, summer events where there's forest fires. are a possibility in what they do to minimize the risk. Met with KL Wambacher and just got an update on theirs, on their stadium upgrades. And so I think he's meeting with all of you over a period of time. And yeah, you'll be interested to just see how they're progressing on that. It's really going to be cool. And it's going to, I think, we could see some activity, construction activity out there sometime in 23, I believe. So, and of course, they're gearing up for the 2023 baseball season at the same time. Housing our community, a year in action. Chair and I were at this. The first stop was in Forest Grove at Casa Amparo, which Amparo means refuge. And certainly it's in Forest Grove, ran by Central Cultural, and they've done a great job. They've put a little bit of a facelift on the motel there, so it looks a lot better, but they've got some great plans for where they want to go with that in next stages. So doing a great job. Shout out to SHS for the funding, and certainly for Jess and Josh and all the hard work that their team have been doing with that. The stage 2 and stage 3, the chair attended, I think you attended all 3 of those stops, didn't you? Yes, and I did not. I only attended the first one, so I'll have the chair report on the other 2. And then last night, again, the chair and I sat in and listened to Ordinance 883, which is the residents of Riggs Road, but that's the extension of Cornelius Pass down through towards Farmington and connecting up with Clark Hill. It was an interesting Q&A that went on a little past 8 o'clock last night. And I guess from my standpoint, what I heard was the residents of Riggs Road, of course, are very concerned about their loss in property value if the road kind of bifurcates their neighborhood. There were others that wanted the road to be directed over to Farmington before it got to Riggs Road, as that was one of the options. And then there was concerns about basically the traffic flow that's going to continue on South Clark Hill Road, Tile Flat Road, and tie into Ordinance 882. So lots of different variations of conversation that we heard there. And it's just good to hear it was well attended. So it was good to hear from our public on that. Tomorrow's the AOC District 8 meeting. I think we're all going to be going to that at a town hall. And then we are having a community hall for Council Creek. That one is Thursday night. So busy week.
Wonderful. Thank you. Commissioners Rogers or Fye, anything you'd like to share with everyone?
I'll go next.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very, very glad that Washington County is providing the opportunity for our board sessions and work sessions are virtually, both in person. And so I'm really just appreciative of this hybrid model that we're instituting. And so I'm dialing in from virtually today with you all, and look forward to being the regular board meeting in person this afternoon or this evening. Last week I had a great meeting with Mayor Callaway and also Councilor Heisey, who sits on the JPAC. In my meeting with Mayor Beatty and Commissioner Trees, as Commissioner Trees mentioned, I'll just highlight some of the tour plan and some of the stops that we plan to do. Commissioner Trees, myself, and Mayor Beatty, and the Beaverton team, City of Beaverton team. And the idea for this is to both for Commissioner Trees and myself to see some of the safety concerns and also see some of the success stories around infrastructure development within Beaverton, the city of Beaverton. So we're gonna stop by the Patricia Reese Center for the Arts. We're also gonna see the Arts and Innovation District. We're gonna stop by on Farmington and have conversation around safety on Farmington. The Marianne, we hope to stop by Home Plate Youth Services. We're also going to visit the Veterans Memorial Park, and we're going to see the senior affordable housing on 5th, as well as First Street Commons. And then lastly, we're going to also have a conversation around safety on TV Highway. So busy tour, and look forward to reporting back some of the safety concerns and engage a conversation around how do we mitigate some of those safeties and what we can do. And look forward to this tour. This will be my first tour, sort of focused on District 1 and District 2 around safety and successes. So
I wish
more-
you good weather.
Thank you.
Yes,
I've
thank
got
you,
a
Chair.
hooded raincoat.
And last week I had the opportunity to be a guest speaker at the Street Trust, their Alice Award, which took place in Lloyd Center in Portland. And some of the highlights in my comments were around Farmington and our partnership with the Street Trust around some of the tour that they've organized with elected and community leaders and agencies to highlight some of the safety concerns, to actually expose all of the leaders that sort of have their thumbs on the power of buttons, funding, or any of that changes that could happen around Farmington. Some of the safety challenges that people who use Farmington encounter on a daily basis. So I really was appreciative of that tour and the conversation that came out of it with other electeds that reached out and said, I had no idea Farmington was this problematic. So it was a great to be in that, sort of group of minds of that sort of embody this idea that multimodal is the future. So it was a really good event. I too attended the Governor Women's Electeds event. It's my first time in the governor's space house or mansion, I think is the correct word. It was really good to see a lot of the commissioners, other women who are commissioners throughout our state of Oregon, and just have like a brief conversation about what are the top 2 things they're working on. And then yesterday we had WCCC, which leads me to talk about JPAC, which is coming out this Thursday. We have our workshop that is combined with JPAC members and Metro counselors. So every month we've been having this workshop for the past few months, and every month we sort of focus on a topic in the RTP. And this month we're focusing on safety and the safe and healthy part of urban arterials policy. So the Metro staff put together about 6 really good questions, I think, in my opinion, that really sort of not only gets you at the high level big picture, but also in the weeds, what are really like low hanging fruits kind of. So I really appreciated these questions, and then the conversation that we had at WCCC yesterday, sort of just talk about the funding and the definitions of it, and also, remind other jurisdictions and other electeds and other spaces that, sort of Washington County sort of have a coordinated effort around investments when it comes to our streets. So I think it's a good message to carry forward, and looking forward to that conversation on this Thursday. Reason why I mentioned this workshop is I would like to send you the policy document that we're reviewing on JPAC. Just quickly, if you have any like sort of a comment or a feedback, or like you want to ask and post this question to the group that are you like me to carry forward, just send it to me and Brenda, or reply to that email to Brenda, and we'll carry that message forward. Our JPAC meeting is this Thursday at 7:30. But I think WCCC had a really robust conversation where everybody was really sort of doing like a brain dump of what they're thinking, what their thoughts are specifically within their own city jurisdictions. So we have enough information to carry forward, but if you have some burning comments or questions around urban arterials, I'll certainly happy to carry that forward. In terms of this week, before I move on from transportation, November 17th, the Oregon Transportation Commission is actually going to have their meeting in our board room. So if any of you are in town that night, we can get you the information about when that meeting is, what time. I don't think they posted yet the times, but November 17th, OTC will be in Washington County, none other than our boardroom. So it's really exciting that to have the OTC come, and we can perhaps organize ourselves to maybe just not only to say hello, but to provide some testimonies that day. So that's November
That's
17th.
Thursday, November 17th, and I know I'll be attending the AOC conference, and it's held down in Eugene, and it's a very full day with an event that evening, so I know I'll be missing it.
Yeah. They're going to be offering virtual as well, just like we are. So I'm working with Brenda to try to carve some time for myself to just pop in online and say hello and provide feedback, because they're going to have a lot on that agenda, especially with the RTAC and everything that's happening around tolling. But thank you, Chair Harrington. And this week, as well as Commissioner Willie and Commissioner Treese, I plan to attend the AOC District 8 meeting. Look forward to that. I have it on my calendar to also attend the Salzman Road Senior Housing groundbreaking. And this Thursday also, I'll be attending. Governor Kate Brown had to reschedule Juneteenth event that was going to happen around Juneteenth. So it's got rescheduled to this week. So I'll be attending that on Thursday, and look forward to celebrating Juneteenth. And that concludes my update, Chair Harrington.
Thank you, Commissioner Fye. How about you, Commissioner Rogers?
It sounds like everybody's been very busy. That's great. Since we last talked, had a meeting with Rodney Rhodes. I think you all are going to have one as well. And he's looking to seek your input in regard to the finance department. And I tried to share my experiences over a number of years with a lot of different jurisdictions. So that was interesting. Also, I'm not a member, but I am on the HB 2017 Transit Regional Committee, and I attended virtually the Washington County Transit Advisory. Our chair is the chair of that committee, and I'm always pleased to see how involved they are and how interested they are in transit in Washington County. We all understand we need it, and so that was a terrific meeting. I met with the leadership of the Tualatin Chamber, tried to steer them to a few contacts in the workforce space. They're looking at doing a little bit more robust activity there, and so we made some connections. Jerry and I on last Friday dealt with the reapportionment, and Jerry had a plan that he said that everybody accepted, and so it's going to be real easy for us all. That's a joke. This is very complicated. So it's interesting to though he did have a plan. It was very interesting to see the complexities of it all. On this yesterday had a meeting with Quick, a long meeting. That's our insurance group with Clean Water Services, looking at cyber coverage, maybe some coverage of some loan deductible coverage of various sorts of it, or I should say deductible coverage of various sorts. Interesting meeting, very, very thoughtful. I would hope that Tanya, the county at some point might look at similar kinds of activities. It's certainly something that can save a lot of money, and it certainly has some real benefits. So that's it. I, with you, will be there tonight in person, and hope that I can virtually go to the AOC meeting on Wednesday, should they provide that. And then I guess tomorrow night, we're also having our meeting at the county there for our quarterly town hall. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. Yes, indeed. It is September, busy time. We've all had our first month after the summer vacation season. And now we have October on our doorstep. I want to start with a thank you to our land use staff. They put their thinking caps on to figure out how they could marshal themselves and set up a system to work through the various permit backlogs that exist. And they're just making progress, great progress from 1 week to the next. So I know that the board has been getting some report out on that progress, and I just wanted to elevate to the team. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I know it will continue to take some more time to get that backlog worked through, and I just want to highlight you're doing great work. So thank you. I have a few mentions from meetings of last week. I participated in the regular board of directors meeting for the Washington County Visitors Association, where we received a clean audit from Kern Thompson. And then through the president's report, he let us know that they're working on a hotel summit. They've been doing some more marketing projects, including festival marketing. So providing the creative work for others who are having festivals to give them another avenue for accomplishing the work versus just having grant money requests. I have provided hard copies of both the brochure and the card, which gives you a brief report out on the level of visitor spending in the county, and highlights that here in Washington County, one of our county's top industries is tourism, and it's the fourth largest export-oriented industry in Oregon. This week, September 23rd through October 2nd is Coffee Week. So feel free to check out the WCVA website, and there's a little QR code as well for some fun things going on there. He also reported out that Washington, performance-wise, Washington County continues to outperform Oregon in our hotel bookings, still as usual, lower than that of the US. Room revenue is up 51%. And we have definitely seen a clear return of the pattern of business travel, as well as still seeing strong weekends, which is a little unusual for our area. where our market has typically been midweek occupancy with business travel. And in case you didn't know, as a general rule, tourists from Canada like Oregon for its tax-free shopping. And travel spending has exceeded that of levels in 2019 pre-pandemic. So good news there from that industry. As Commissioner Rogers mentioned, the Washington County Transit Committee wrapped up its work with its fourth meeting to advance recommendations to us, and we'll see those in coming weeks. The housing SHS tour that some of my colleagues mentioned, Housing in Action, was really wonderful. And I thank staff, or I join my colleagues in thanking staff for putting that together. And at the Metro Supportive Housing Services Oversight Committee meeting on Monday, I mentioned it and how the group missed a great opportunity. They've been asking for tours, and so we had one set up and nobody from that group attended. So really unfortunate. At that SHS, that Metro SHS Oversight Committee meeting, we went over the Q4 reports from the 3 counties, as well as next finance plans. And I really want to give kudos to Jessie Adams of our Washington County team. She gave a good presentation and her verbal comments really provided good context for the information that she presented. So good job, good job. So I think that's it from me. I'll be joining my colleagues at the AOC District 8 meeting, and just lots of briefings and work to do, and onward ho we go. So that's it from me. I'll turn it over to our leadership team and start with Ms. Angie. We better watch out for the day where I mix it up and go Diane, Tom, then Tanya, huh? I'll stay tuned for a future meeting. You've been forewarned.
Chair Harrington, I think you did one time, and I think the 3 of us were a bit flustered. Who's supposed to go? We can all be creatures of our own habits at times, right? So I do want to announce yesterday was a great day. We did launch our new website. And this is following a multi-year planning and development process, which included public surveys and targeted community engagement. Washington County replacing this website was a monumental feat. Website process behind the scenes. I think as CWS has just gone through it, we just wipe our brows, and I'm just really proud of the staff work. The look, feel, and navigation of the redesign are meant to make access to information and online services easier. And so it was, the design is based on customer experience. Many times government websites can be built on how we structure our work internally or how departments deliver the services. But what we tried to do is, with community input, really flip that on its head and base it on the user experience. So the buttons that you're used to have moved.
As Ms. Angie can attest from having to help me a few different times in 24 hours.
So some of the improvements I do want to lift up: a more aesthetically pleasing, readable, and mobile friendly visitor experience, including enhanced search capability, a more efficient use of communication technology, and a task-based environment that allows visitors to get more business done with the county more quickly. So what that means is less clicks to get to the information that you need. I also want to just call out that there is an olive green header at the top of the website. And even though we may have launched the website, we're not done. We are continuing to get community stakeholder feedback, how to access information and continuing to make improvements. And there's some things that we've missed too. One example is we changed the search function because some spell town hall as one word and some spell it as two words. And so just creating that searchability based on user feedback has been helpful. So as your board or community that may be listening, trying to find something or a feature that was on the website that you may miss, just please let us know. And this is also part of just Washington County's commitment to be a continuous learning environment. I do want to briefly talk about aid and assist federal order. This is an item that will be coming before your board on October 18th. And you have heard from County Council as well as our government relations team some information on this. So as a reminder, staff are working across the county to understand and implement the results of the Mossman order to release patients from the Oregon State Hospital. As part of our One Washington County approach to issues, county administration, county council, government relations, health and human services, and multiple county public safety agencies are collaborating to identify issues and potential remedies to this situation. Currently, staff are working to obtain timely notice about the names of specific patients that will be discharged from OSH pursuant to the federal court order, understand the procedures that state circuit courts will have regarding the next steps for these patients, and determine options for meeting the needs of the patients when returned to the county's care. Late on Friday, we did receive notice that 3 patients will be discharged to the county on October 25th. There is currently a briefing being provided to counties from the County Council Association, which is ongoing right now. Staff is attending this meeting and will continue to be reporting back to your board on the impacts to the county's operational response and possible solutions. The Association of Oregon Counties is working to schedule an opportunity for commissioners to communicate with the Oregon Health Authority leadership. And once again, this is scheduled to come before your board on October 18th. And as new information comes forward, of course, staff will be providing you those updates through email.
Daniel, could you just double check for us, the board, and make sure that Ms. Angie and company have access to the latest District 8 agenda and packet as it relates to that topic?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I do also want to just acknowledge and appreciate the board's ongoing leadership and encouraging staff development here at Washington County. As your board's aware, I was at the ICMA conference last week, the International City County Management Association, in addition to Rachel Fuller, one of our assistant county administrators, and Dorian Russell, our senior ARPA coordinator. I do want to give a shout out to Dorian. She did present on breaking down policies in support of LGBTQ communities, both from HR policies to also other types of policies. So really happy to see her presenting on an international platform. During the conference, I was involved as I serve as a mentor and speed coach, and in other sessions, I felt very extroverted out and needed some introvert time, but it was great attendance in Columbus, Ohio, and there were 4,200 members from all over the world. And so it's really great to also see the best practices coming forward, not only from our city and county governments within the United States, but also internationally, and to be sharing in that learning.
Would you say that's pent up demand from COVID times, not being able to be as physically present? That's what we experienced at the World Water Congress. They had a bigger attendance in 2022 than they had originally anticipated.
No, this was actually on track. Next year, the conference is in Austin, Texas, and so expecting a higher attendance just because flights are easier to get to Austin than Ohio. Actually, the conference platform was virtual too, so I can't
Ah.
recall the virtual attendance. But from a user experience, it's wonderful because when there were overlapping sessions, I could go back afterwards and still watch those sessions in addition to that.
Cool. Neat.
And that concludes my update.
Okay, any questions or comments for Ms. Angie, anyone? Nope. Go ahead, Mr. Carr, and thank you for keeping your cold germs at home.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak from home when I'm a little bit sick. I will be relatively brief. To follow up on what Ms. Angie said, we will be filing an amicus brief tomorrow in the federal district court, suggesting that the judge did not have the authority to issue the order that he issued. Marion County will be joining us in filing that brief. The other thing I wanted to mention is, as you all know, I think you've heard before, we have a sort of challenge with this year with elections, with a lot of demand for information. One of those demands was a request for our SQL database that we use to keep track of voter records or ballots and it's voter records, sorry. And there was a two-day trial last week. The courtroom was packed. They had to create an overflow room. We had deputies on hand, and Jason Bush did an outstanding job of representing the county in partnership with the Secretary of State's office and the Attorney General to defend the county. We don't have a decision from the judge. She took it under advisement and is going to issue a written decision sometime soon. But I do want to congratulate Jason on all the hard work he did and the excellent job that he did. Thank you. I don't have anything further.
A question, Tom, I missed, what are you doing tomorrow? What is the?
So Judge Mossman offered the amicus participants the opportunity to brief the issue of whether or not the order that he issued exceeded his authority. So Marion County and Washington County are filing a brief tomorrow asserting that he did not.
Can I just follow up? I thought that's what you might have said, but I'm a little perplexed that there aren't others who are also filing. I mean,
we're taking different. So a group of judges have filed to intervene in the action. So that's separate. The DAs, I'm not sure what they're doing. They are trying to negotiate some sort of modification to the order. So we're all taking different approaches. We've been in contact. The judges filed a motion to intervene, and we stated that the county did not object to that. Their concern is the part of the order prohibits state court judges from holding the state hospital in contempt for failing to take patients when they've been directed there. And the judges assert that exceeds the court's authority and violates the state judge's authority.
Right, just a comment real quick. When I certainly would suggest that we file the brief. I mean, you can't play in the game if you don't participate. But I'm particularly interested, why is there other counties not involved? I would think, yeah.
Commissioner Rogers, it puzzles me. We've reached out, but we've heard we're happy to stand behind you. And so for some,
and certainly this has been a topic of conversation at AOC meetings, going back to the legislative retreat in June. It's an active topic of discussion at the Health and Human Services and Public Safety legislative committees as well. But it may just be that other boards are not as ready or perhaps not as comfortable as Washington County and Marion County's boards are in working with their county council on this situation. Does that make sense, Commissioner Rogers?
No, that does entirely. It just seems to me, and again, I'm not as close to it as all of you, but it seems like a no-brainer to be involved. And so I guess it helps.
It's also true that Washington County has more aid and assist defendants than most counties. We take our obligations seriously. We have a robust mental health service, so we are able to detect those individuals better than some. And also we have a district attorney who prosecutes aggressively to protect public safety. So You add those factors, Washington County's numbers are higher than a lot of other counties. Some counties have virtually none, so it's not really an issue for them as much as it is for us. Thank you, Chair Harrington.
And one thing that you're missing, not being in the room today, Mr. Carr, is I think we have our very first community member in the room with us today in work session. So as we have just moved to this hybrid mode of operation, I'm pleased that we have a welcoming space. So thank you for joining us. Ms. Taniguchi Dennis.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair Harrington and Board of Clean Water Services. So I have a couple of announcements. The first one is regarding our watershed-based permit for wastewater and stormwater regulatory compliance. We fondly refer to it as our MPDES and MS4 permit. So we had our public hearing last Friday, and it went really well. Mark Hinson, our DEQ permit writer, did a really great job explaining our permit and the myriad challenges that we have with water quality conditions on the river. The Clean Water Services team did an excellent job working with stakeholders and also with DEQ. So the Tualatin River Keepers, the Lake Oswego Corporation, Washington County's Stormwater Program, Beaverton, Clackamas County were all in attendance. There was only one question related to stormwater infiltration raised that the team addressed, and there were no comments raised during the public comment period. So the team is actively working through that, and we're hopeful to get our permit renewed and issued here shortly. Right now, the team is actively addressing complaints from neighbors about dust being generated during construction of new developments, particularly in the River Terrace area. It's this sort of combination of hot, dry, low humidity, and wind that's really exacerbated the dust conditions on construction sites. And you can see it not only River Terrace, but just in other areas. And the contractors are having quite a challenge. They're increasing water truck usage for better dust control. They're trying to do street sweeping to control the dust on the streets. And our team is responding to they're responding to our requirements with our team. But we have had to use some progressive escalation of enforcement from verbal to written, and then additionally stop work orders. But the contractors are all working for compliance, and we have increased our erosion control inspections to even be on weekends to proactively address the neighborhood concerns. But it's quite a challenge this year. Even in my neighborhood, they're having a tough time with the conditions that are out there.
We need just a little bit of rain to get
Yes.
that soil a little moist again.
Yeah, we need moisture, definitely.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Thank-
Yeah, it's coming, I think, right? So there's the Fern Hill Tour is on Thursday at 4 p.m. for city officials to learn and engage more with Clean Water Services about what we do for the river. There's a delegation from BCOMS, the wastewater and stormwater utilities from Vientiane, Laos, that's coming with the State Department, and they'll be visiting Clean Water Services October 13th and 14th. There's also been a request for a delegation, including elected officials from Japan that are also coming to tour Fern Hill and learn about Clean Water Services, nature-based water solutions. And it sounds like it's going to be around November 3rd. And this is really consistent with what we heard at the International Water Association conference, this increased interest in nature-based solutions. And Clean Water Services is surely an expert in this area and represents our region really well. So a lot of exciting things and people coming to visit us. And Mark Jockers will talk with the board to see if some of the board members would also like to be as part of the welcoming to these delegations. So
Terrific.
thank you.
Thank you.
I could just comment that, Diane, after I read Mark's email about the dust issues, I was driving to Banks, and you're an agriculture area out there, and, they're now toiling up the fields to get ready for winter and things like that. And there is dust everywhere. They're putting lime down and it's white everywhere. And you're going, we still live in an agriculture community, and it is drier and it does get dusty, but that's what we live with when we've gone this long without rain. So that was interesting.
Yes, indeed. All righty. we just, oh, I didn't print the latest. So one of you who's connected for the board meeting this evening, do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Oh, thank you. That's why I didn't print an updated one, because there wasn't any change. Thank you very much, Clerk Moss. I appreciate it. We do have a few different presentations this evening, and I'm looking forward to all of those, but including Mr. Nelson on elections, as I know your team is very busy handling things in preparation for the November 8th election, which in my mind seems so far away because that's 2 whole months away. But I know that they're very busy making sure that all the systems are a go for that. So thank you to our elections team. I know it's a tough community out there right now. So very good. All righty, so our next topic for work session, lucky for us, we just have one topic, though it's a big kahuna. And it is Commissioner District Reapportionment, a presentation of community feedback on proposed options. So I'd like to welcome the team. I know there are various team members here involved. So Ms. Angie, I'll turn it over to you and your team.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. And with that, I'll turn it over to Marnie Kyle, Assistant County Administrator.
This is in your portfolio too, isn't it?
This is, yes.
I'm still learning.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Harrington and board members, Marnie Kyle. For the record, I'm an Assistant County Administrator. And yes, this reapportionment, assessment and taxation is part of my portfolio. So I'm learning a lot about reapportionment, taxation, how we do our assessments. Joe's a great teacher and his team. So you're probably used to seeing Sia come and talk about the reapportionment. And I do want to take just a moment to thank Sia. She was a project manager, got this project launched, and a really, really strong foundation. So I really appreciate the work that she did and how she brought me along so that I can sit before you today and have a little tiny bit of information to answer questions. But we have a great team. Mr. Carr is part of our team. Joe, Amanda, Philip, Steve March. So we have a really strong team. You'll just hear from 4 of us today. So the purpose of today is really, whoops. Gotta figure out which button to push.
Is the remote on?
So you used to use.
Oh, there you go.
Kevin changed the slide. Come on, Kevin.
So what we're hoping to do today is to really bring to you the key question that we're hoping that your board can tackle this afternoon and have a conversation about. We'll do a quick reminder about the purpose of this project. Why are we here? Most of today will be spent giving you an overview of our community engagement, both the in-person as well as the online community engagement work that we have done, with Amanda taking the leadership on that. Some key takeaways, what we learned through that community engagement, and then really want to turn it back to you so that you have really some time to discuss your next steps and really think about these key questions.
Darn, the ball's backing up.
The ball will come back to your court. Maybe I just need patience.
Not sure it's on.
Need music.
Is somebody else doing that, or is it just working eventually?
While you were playing with it, I'm just going through it. So.
Okay. I'm like, if I hit the button enough, is it finally doing it, or did somebody magically
Chuck's
do
got
that
your
for
back.
me? Chuck's got my back. All right. So as you go through this, I just wanted to upfront bring the key questions up front so that you can kind of be thinking about them as you hear from staff today. So one of the questions is, does the board have enough information about the community input that we've received regarding the 5 proposals for redrawing the commissioner district boundaries. So do you have other questions? Do you have other needs for information? So that's one of the key questions. The second, which is really the important question, is which proposals or proposal does the board want to continue considering in the Portland State University population research final assessment, final report? So the board can choose today to say, we want to consider all 5 proposals. We want to consider only proposal number X, or we want these 3 proposals, or I don't want to say this out loud, we want something different. And we want you to ask PSU to do that. So I don't want to say that one out loud, but it is your option.
Well, I'll just give my colleagues a heads up that if you're looking to get down to 1, I'm going to need your discussion help on that. So I'm looking forward to the conversation of the 5 of us as we go through the presentation. Chuck, we're not there yet.
Wait.
Oops.
I give up. Did I do that? Probably.
It's Kevin's fault.
Oh, commissioners on Zoom may not be able to hear that we're teasing Chuck a little bit because the
Right.
presentation went away. So he's
Okay, so we
There
can
we
go
go.
to the next slide, please. Okay. Oh, magic. Okay. So I think Joe is going to talk about the purpose and give us a reminder about why are we doing this?
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Joe Nelson, Director of Assessment and Taxation. What's important about this slide is just a couple key pieces. Is the reapportionment is based on county charter. It's 1. It follows this decennial census every 10 years. And what we're really trying to do with the purpose is each of the 4 commissioner districts need to be essentially of equal population. One thing to note is that every person in the county is represented by a commissioner before the census, before the redistricting, and regardless of what we do, it will be represented by a commissioner after this redistricting. So it's just changing the boundaries. Next slide, please. Okay, when I was talking about redistricting, the purpose, Washington County has essentially 600,000 people in the population, divided by 4 commissioner districts. That's a target of about 150,000 people each population. However, that's very mathematical. What we learned and what was given to us as direction early on, that this process should be heavy and focused on community engagement, community trust, and transparent. And I'm going to cover the timeline today. And kind of hear that in each step, we're very, very careful. And it was a focus on community engagement. So when we look at step 1, that happened back in February 1st. And that was a public work session. And I was appointed the county official for reapportionment. If you remember, the report that I gave had districts 1, 3, and 4 being essentially the same, all within like 0.5% of each other. However, District 2,
Commissioner Teresa's district.
had almost 109%. So it surpassed the 5% limit requiring the redistricting process. It was about 10,000 folks over. Second step, we needed to create factors to give to Portland State University to study. What we had was the Secretary of State directive. We went out and we had community engagement, actually with the public. They gave us some factors and this board gave us some factors. This board then referred these factors to Portland State University on March 15th in a public setting as well. And Portland State University then went to work and they created the proposals. Initially, they had 4 proposals. And then through work with this board in the community, proposal 2 became 2B. And then we added a 5th one as well. So now we're up to 5 proposals. July 12th, through another public work session, these were referred to community engagement. And community engagement is what we're going to be talking about today. That's where we're at. And we're going to have 2 speakers following Marnie and I that's going to go into those steps. Some of the things that we're going to do for our next steps, Marnie already talked about, but we're going to want to carefully maintain this model of community engagement and the whole concept of community trust and the community involvement in decision making. So what we're going to be looking at in October 18th is another community meeting, but that's going to change this draft report to the final report. The reason why that's important is as soon as the charter says, as soon as I submit the final report, there's a 90-day clock started.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so October 18 is when that clock starts. And what has to happen in that 90-day clock is we have to also, it's very public as well. There's going to be the ordinance process. First reading, second reading and a public hearing, and then finally the adoption. And this whole process has to take place by January 6th. That's the deadline.
Oh, with a few holidays in there.
With a few, a lot of things to do between now and January 6th.
So it really feels to me like our last meeting in December, which is what? The December 13th?
And our last slide also shows the timeline because we're depending on how things go today and in October, hoping that we can really get that going in November and end in early December.
To answer the question, the board's last meeting in December is December 13th.
And when's our first meeting in January? I have not looked at a 2023 calendar.
January 3rd, Chair Harrington.
Oh,
January 3rd.
no pressure. Thank you.
Just as a note, we're on schedule. We put together a timeline early on and started presenting that all the way along and we're right on schedule right now.
So here Washington County goes, setting us up for success yet again. Thank you.
And so Amanda and Philip are going to come up and present now about the community engagement.
Welcome.
Hi, Amanda Garcia Snell, Community Engagement Manager. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the community engagement we'll be summarizing for you today. Hopefully this slide looks familiar to you. We've been showing it along the way in the process. The difference now is that we've completed all 3 of those phases. So this first phase we did back in the spring of this year, as Joe had mentioned, and this was really related to the factors. And then the focus of today will really be about phase 2 and phase 3. So phase 3 we did in collaboration with with Espousal Strategies, and then also worked with the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon, APANO, and the Muslim Education Trust. Those were our 2 community partners that helped us co-create, communicate, and conduct the engagement events that we'll be talking about. And then phase 2 was also really focused on culturally specific engagement. Phase 3 was more general engagement, and we had 1 in-person event and some digital engagement, an online survey, and tabling at the fair. So in addition to the community partners and the consultant that we worked with, we also partnered really closely with Philip and his team, the communications team, who created and distributed messages to about reapportionment and the events. And so we really worked to communicate messages in the traditional way. And then in addition, the ways that the Office of Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement shares messaging through our community connections. It's our weekly e-update, as well as working with community partners and community leaders. So those are folks that may not necessarily be associated with a specific community-based organization, but are considered leaders within their communities. We did focused emails and phone calls, not just us, but also our community partners and the folks that we were working with. In addition, the communications team also put together some really great videos. And so all of our messages were bilingual English and Spanish, but the videos were also bilingual English and Spanish short videos, one focusing on what is reapportionment and then one on the proposed boundaries that were, as Joe mentioned, you approved to share with the community for their feedback. In terms of the event participation, we held 8 total engagement events. 5 of those were listening sessions. So 4 focused on affinity groups. Those were culturally specific listening sessions, in person and virtual. And then 1 general listening session. We had an online survey that we shared. We had some digital engagement, and then also the tabling at the fair. We had 47 people participate in our fair tabling. That was by far our most well-attended event, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then out of those other in-person and virtual engagement events, we had 18 participants, not quite what we had anticipated, but that is what we found. Although those events were small, it did allow for some really rich conversation and a lot of one-on-one time with Joe. He was at all of those events sharing information about reapportionment, and Marcus Ford on in our Office of Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement. So as a reminder, these are the 5 boundaries that you all approved to share with community. Their short names are on the side, and there's more description of these and larger versions of these maps in your packet. But we shared these 5 proposals or proposed boundary maps with community for their input.
And can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Do we have district population totals for each one of these?
Yes, we do.
So was that provided? Because I didn't see it. I'm sorry if I missed it.
In the PSU report, which should be linked to or attached
Okay.
to the packet.
All right. I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
But we assume that they're balanced, obviously.
Yeah,
That's the purpose.
yeah.
The link to the document is on the worksheet page.
Okay.
They have all kinds of tables that has racial makeup and ethnic and racial makeup, and so.
Oh, I did see that. Thank you for that, for reminding me that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's almost overwhelming how much data we have at our fingertips.
Yeah, no kidding.
So in terms of the in-person events, here's a summary of the participation, and then we asked folks to select their preferred boundary of those 5 that I just showed on that previous slide. And the way that we did this for the in-person and had planned to do this for the virtual events, although we did not have anyone attend our virtual events, but the process for this was, and we also did this at the fair as well. So the process that we used was a color dot sticker selection. So every participant was given 1 green dot, and we asked them to place that dot on the map. We had physical maps, and we asked them to place that on the preferred proposed option. We also, each participant, we gave them 3 yellow dots, which were that they could place on any proposal that they were comfortable with or could live with. And then we gave them 1 red dot for anything that they were really opposed to. We did ask, and we ensured that every single participant placed at least 1 or placed only 1 green dot. Not everyone chose to place yellow or red dots. So the blue column represents those green dots. And if you total that, that's the total participants that we had through all the events, through all the in-person events. The orange represents the yellow dots. So those were options that people felt like they could live with. And the gray column represents the red dots. And those were the proposals that people were really opposed to. Those will not total 65 because some people had up to 3 choices, some people used none of those choices. So as you can see, for the in-person events, proposal 3 was really the boundary proposal that people mostly preferred. There was also strong preferences in proposal 2 and 2B and 5.
It was also, could you go back? I just want to point out, it was also tied for the one that most opposed.
Right.
So, just pointing that out there.
Yep.
Yes, and that's a great segue, Commissioner Treese, because what we heard in terms of the proposal specific comments were contradictions within those comments. So for proposal specific, we heard feedback that was related to the specific boundary maps. We also heard general comments and concerns and questions about reapportionment in general. So in terms of the proposal specific comments, and all of this is included in the attached community engagement report, we heard people say that they liked proposal 3 because of the balance of urban and rural. People were also concerned about proposal 3 because of what they perceived as an imbalance between urban and rural. And so we had all manner of comments in that regard. We also saw that people were concerned about proposal 2B because of it reduced the size of District 3, or people found proposal 5 to be a bit confusing and giving too much power to individual jurisdictions. So those comments, we had a few different proposal specific comments, and those are captured in that summary report. We also heard comments about reapportionment in general. So people wanted to know about the demographer, that's Portland State's Population Research Center. They wanted to know about what methods they used or how the census data is developed, questions related to that side of the work, the methods and the process. We also had questions about, could we add another commissioner district, or is there an opportunity for 2 commissioners to serve in 1 district? Questions like that related to district representation. And then we heard some specific area observations and concerns. So in that regard, there was some observation that the Garden Home Raleigh Hills area seemed to be the neighborhood that was most often split or divided. And so we had a variety of comments, some proposal specific and then some in general. And now I will pass it to Philip to talk about the survey.
Thank you. For the record, Philip Bransford, Communications Officer with the Washington County Administrative Office. Happy to talk about the online survey that we conducted for this effort. I'll say right off the bat, though, this is a great example, I feel, of the collaborative work we've done with the communications team, working together with the community engagement team. We've talked a lot about how those 2 functions are separate, but they also overlap. And this is, I feel like this is one of the success stories where we actually did well, if I may say so, in the overlapping performance here. So this is different than what the board might be used to, me or a consulting firm coming to you to report in the sense or in the vein of, say, a local option levy that the board might consider placing on the ballot, where we would do a scientific survey where we would provide some methodology, a sample size, such that you can gauge, with a margin of error and all of those measures, what the outcome is. This is different. This is a community, come one, come all, non-scientific approach. And so that first set of bullets there just is they are there to illustrate the outreach that we did on the communications side using our social media platforms, but also some earned media to try to garner some interest in taking the online survey. And I won't read all the statistics there, but basically when we're talking about an impression, it's somebody that's looked at the content and we were able to tell that through the metrics on the platform. I'll point out then, Amanda already mentioned this. We did, in addition to what's listed there, a couple YouTube videos, one just about the basics about what is reapportionment, what is that all about? How does that work? And then another one was really fun. I have to give some credit to Joe Nelson because Veronica Garcia in his department participated. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but she jumps up and down, and every time she lands on her feet, she's in a new part of the county. And it's just a fun way to say, hey, this is what this is about. It's part of democracy, and this is a represented. This is how we get to a representational place with our government. Anyway, both of those videos were in Spanish and English, and they have viewerships that are clocking up into the 200s now. So that was a fun part of this. So the survey total self-selected respondents came to 320. So that was 317 completed surveys with the English questionnaire, and then 3 in the Spanish questionnaire. Yes.
So we may not be used to you coming and giving us a self-selected survey report, but LUT does it all the
Yes.
time. And 320?
That's not bad.
Yeah, I'd be jumping for joy if we had 320 people completing the MSTIP 23 to 28 survey, don't you think?
No, I think if I can pat ourselves on the back, I would say that we did a pretty good job getting to that 320.
You sure did. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll point out too, and maybe this is a good thing as well, I'm not sure, but the demographics there represent how each participant in the online survey identified themselves racially, ethnically, gender-wise, and so forth. Looking at that set of demographics reminds me of the random sample demographics that we do for money measures and so forth. In that it's more representative. This is just Bransford talking here. It's more representative of the voting population than the entire community if you were to do a survey like the US Census Bureau does or something of that sort. So that's just something to flag. So onward to the results, and we are again working in tandem here. So we've arranged the data in a similar manner to the bar chart you saw a second ago that Amanda shared. So in the survey, each individual proposal was presented to the respondent with a map, and they were asked, how do you feel about this? There was also a question that forced the respondent to choose what was your favorite. So that first set of bars, those blue bars, are the forced choice responses, similar to what you saw a second ago that Amanda presented. And you can see there's proposal number 3 was doing well in the forced choice. The remaining bars, the orange being support and the total support, and the gray being total opposition, represented the different that individual or direct view into how do you like this particular proposal. And there the proposal 4 was scoring well. And I will say, not provided in this slide, but in the full report from our public opinion research firm, Patinkin Research Strategies, you can see on those last 2 bars there was also a measure of the strength of your feeling around a particular proposal. And proposal 4 did well in that score too. It had the highest number and the strongest kind of yes, I strongly support this one. I should pause though, just make sure that I check in with the board if there's any questions.
Could you run that strength of and number 4 for me again?
Right. So that was in that vein of the survey where it was a direct, here's a map, here's the description. You support it, do you oppose it? Or are you not sure? If you supported it, how strongly did you support it? If you opposed it, how strongly did you oppose it?
Got it.
And those strength of that intensity is not represented here, but you can see those numbers in the full report.
Got it.
And I'll just let you know that number 4 had the highest strength of support. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know if our board members online have any questions before I soldier on.
Thank you, Philip. Commissioner Rogers, do you have any questions?
No, we went through this quite extensively in a briefing the other day, so that's why I'm not asking any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Fai.
Same here as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll just wrap my part of this up then with this slide. This is from almost word for word from the report that Patinkin provided the county. And so were they to be here, they would emphasize this ranking based only on the online survey where people self-selected. So they were focusing on proposal 4, which, as we saw a second ago, got the highest support. You know, it was second place in the forced choice exercise, tested well with our Black, Indigenous, and other people of color residents with 53% support. And then next down in their view was proposal 5, the city UPAA urban planning agreement, urban planning area agreement. Did I get that right? Mm-hmm. That's what UPAA stands for. And tested second best in the direct questioning, tested well among the BIPOC community, did not score as well in the forced choice. Proposal 3 was the urban rural balance. This proposal tested well among our BIPOC participants, 61%. It was the lowest score in the direct questioning. And the last point that Patinkin wants everyone to know is that in a self-selected environment where we're talking about a particular segment of the community that is identifying as Black, Indigenous, or people of color, or other cohorts for that matter, it's important to take that with a grain of salt. This is not the Patinkin is not representing that those 51 people have now told you what the BIPOC population in Washington County feels. That would be a different methodology where we would have that mathematical testing that we talked about earlier. This is that self-selected model. And that concludes my segment, unless there are further questions.
If I could just interrupt and comment now, Philip. I really appreciate that in this process that an outside analyst was utilized, thereby protecting you or any other staff member from trying to represent the analysis of the data. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. And with that, I think we hand back.
Commissioner Fai, did you have a question?
I did for Philip before you leave. If you could go
I
back.
can hardly hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
No, we cannot hear you at all now, Commissioner Fai.
Now?
Yes.
Okay. Is it still low or?
No, it sounds great.
Okay. Thanks, Philip. Kevin, if you could go back to the last slide. So Philip, could you help us walk us through what Patinkin Research did? And then the online survey is that you're referring to that they worked on is the previous slide. Kevin, if you could go back one more slide, this one, correct?
Correct.
So as I see slide 1, 3, proposal 1, 3, 4, and 5. Actually, I take it back. Highest being 4, 5, and then 1. But how did they get proposal 3, 4, and 5? Perhaps we're missing something.
Yeah, they tried to explain that there in each of these bullets for getting that overall highest score and second place winner. So they're basically combining the different threads, if you will, of what the data show, and they're giving you their professional expert kind of, some, in the air kind of view about how would you interpret this? Because not unlike what happened with the community engagement, there are some countervailing opinions that are represented in the different data sets, like the different results. The forced choice having a different outcome than the individual proposal and the reactions to each individual proposal. So what do you do with that? How do you interpret that? Well, this is Patinkin's attempt at interpreting all of that, and there's more description around this and the crosstabs and so forth in the full report.
So I think what you're saying is there's not a direct correlation to those charts and what we're seeing as the recommendations. It's an amalgamation of a lot of different pieces.
Correct.
And-
Does that make sense, Commissioner Faya?
It makes sense in the way Commissioner Trees explained. I'm not sure if this slide explains it to the community. It sounds like we see one thing in slide one, and then we're saying this is what the this research group said. But it's not correlating well. So I don't, but I'm glad we have Commissioner Trees' comment on record now. So that probably explains it.
Yeah, and were you gonna try?
I was just going to clarify
Oh, right.
that these are not recommendations. This is Patinkin's analysis.
Yeah.
There are no recommendations in the presentation or the.
Yes, sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, proposals.
Thank you. I mean, one area that I don't know if this is going to help or not, I'll just throw it out and then carry on. But there was concern about that Patinkin expressed in our debriefing with them about the forced choice question, in particular, how a respondent may have lost track of what they were indicating because they are looking at 5 maps at that moment in the survey. And keep in mind, they're doing this within minutes. So these 320 people are taking the survey, click, 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 they're going fast. There could have been some measurement errors, one way of describing it, with respect to the forced choice. Whereas with the direct questioning about individual proposals, you get to see the map. It's the only proposal on the screen at that moment. And you're measuring intensity of support. And then you can come back through analysis and come up with the crosstab so you can see how well did a particular measure do with women, or how well did it do with people who are, identifying as Black, Indigenous, or other people of color. I don't know if that helps, Commissioner Fye, but that's at least what Patinkin told us in our debriefing.
That's very helpful, Bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
There's also further explanation on page 63 of 133 in the work session packet.
All right,
Okay, so.
you're next.
Oh, okay. Moving on to the overall takeaways, beginning with some community engagement limitations. So although staff were diligent in pursuing equitable community engagement, there were, throughout the entire process, there were some limitations that were really beyond our control. One of those was the delay in the release of the US data by the federal government. And so that really compressed our timeline. As you know, we have a final end date that we needed to meet, and so that delay really put us in a tighter bind than we would have liked to be. As part of that, we were trying to conduct all of the community engagement within the month of August. We did go a few weeks into September as well with the survey, but that conflicted with the peak of summer, which meant that many community members and leaders or groups were not available to participate. In some instances, meetings were on summer hiatus. We see with a lot of CPOs in particular take the month of August off or summer break in their meetings, and folks have summer travel and other commitments during that time. We also, this was a highly technical topic. And so it was challenging to describe it in a way that resonated with community. We discovered that as we were talking with community about it in the various listening sessions, and then in some of our after action analysis with community partners. Also, the legacy of culturally specific communities not participating in decision-making or not having an opportunity to participate in local government decision-making. That legacy continues, and we continue to work to address that, but certainly it has an impact in people's engagement. And then potential impact from the continued presence of COVID-19. we don't know, but we assume or anticipate that folks didn't want to attend in-person events because of that, or didn't want to attend virtual events because they were excited to do in-person things. I mean, it's hard to know. This is all new territory for us. And then also, as Philip had mentioned, people self-selected into that survey. So if we did not email every person in Washington County or mail something to every household in order encouraging them to take the survey, we pushed it out in a variety of ways. But if people didn't see it or take it, then we don't know how they. We also had many lessons learned. So as Tanya says, we're a learning organization, and community engagement certainly is no different. We are learning every time we do almost anything. So certainly we recognize that we could have started, or in the future, we would start doing education about reapportionment in general. Because of the technical nature of the topic, we would start doing that well in advance of having proposed boundaries to share. And that way we could prime the community, so to speak, with some of the basics and answer those questions for them in advance. Also continuing to work towards simplified messaging, earned media coverage, tailoring to culturally specific groups and others is always beneficial. The fair was one unplanned and unanticipated success. So that was by far our most successful outreach event. We weren't initially planning to participate in the fair, but the timing just came together in a way that made that work. And thank you to Tom Carr and Sylvia Pereda from the communications team, who really, and Latricia Tillman, worked the crowd in Spanish and English and got great participation for the fair for that event. Also, we would continue, and we would leverage similar events like that in the future. The online survey we offered in Spanish and English, but we would consider other languages in the future. We would also do some additional engagement, I think, to better understand why people selected what they selected. I think that could help us think through the proposals and potentially provide information that's helpful to you all in your decision making. And then the videos were a great tool. We would continue to do things like that. I think this is newer territory for us as a county as well, and pretty exciting, and they get great response. And so we would do more of those. And then overall, we received great input, recommendations for future engagement, and great input in this process. And we heard a lot of positive things from the community in terms of participation and thanking us for the opportunity. And so we were very proud about that. And I will kick it back over to Joe.
It hadn't occurred to me earlier, Ms. Angie, to ask you if you could sit over here so all four of your team members could sit there. I'll have to think about that next time. The things I learn along the way.
We're a learning organization.
As Marnie mentioned earlier, we're going to come back to this slide, but I want to make sure I'm sensitive towards the time, because I want to allow the board to have time for deliberation on this topic. The one piece that I wanted to emphasize was where we are currently is we have a draft from PSU. This draft has 5 proposals. Where we need to get to for the final report for October 18th is direction from this board. What needs to go from this draft to this final report? This next slide pretty much reemphasizes that, and it talks about the 90-day window that I talked about earlier.
So if I could ask a clarifying question. So we're working towards a final report, but at the end of the day, we need to have an ordinance for consideration that identifies one proposal. For the meeting on the 18th, all of our meetings, board meetings, are public meetings. But is that meeting on the 18th a business meeting or a work session meeting? for this topic. And the reason I ask that is because I just want the 5 commissioners to know, we know that we have to be able to come out. We have to be able to have a first reading in November with one proposal, right?
That's correct.
Because that needs to be working towards this adoption. And I'm just trying to ensure we all have the opportunity to be anchored. Do we need to decide one today? Or at a minimum, do we need to narrow things today so that by the 18th, we can get to one?
The easy answer is by the 18th, you need to get to one. So if today you can narrow it to one,
It's good, but
and
not
do some of that pre-work, it's good, but not required. You
Okay.
could say 2 or 1 or all 5.
okay. Alrighty. Is that clear to all commissioners? Yep. Yep. Okay. Terrific. So does anyone first, just because I'm more than happy to let you explain the next step slides, or the next step slide if you want. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay, this is something that I was just wanting to be sensitive. I can go in detail with this again, but it would be
Oh,
reiterating what you've already heard.
Commissioners, do you need or want the explanation? Nope, it looks like we're all set. Okay.
Okay, good.
So then we are back to your key questions. and
Okay.
Really turning it over to you.
Great.
The first question being really, do you have all the information you need? And then the second question is the tough question.
So
What would you like to
commissioners, we usually go through a process where we go around to all 5 of us and collect the info on both questions at the same time. How would you like to proceed? I think it seems to me, just as one of 5, that the first question is pretty straightforward. And I imagine we'll have more conversation on the second one. So how about if we approach question 1 first and then come back to question 2? Is that reasonable? I'm seeing at least 3 head nods. So, okay, great. So commissioners, and I'm just going to open it up to the floor. Do any of you have any further questions about the information regarding community involvement that you would like to have addressed? Or are you all thumbs up at this point?
I don't have any further questions.
I don't either. I think I saw at least 4 thumbs. Commissioner Rogers, are you okay with the information thus far as presented?
Yes, there's nothing more that I need in way of
Okay.
information.
Okay, so now we're down to considering the different 5 proposals.
Excuse me, Chair Harrington, if it's helpful for the people that are in this room, there are detailed maps in your,
Well, they were in our packet.
and we also have
we had
large.
the opportunity to print
Okay.
them as we needed. Thank you
Okay.
for the offer. If we get tied up on looking at
Great.
some specific edge detail, then we'll spread them out.
Great.
Thank you for the offer. So who would like to go first? Or some other suggestion?
I can go first.
Okie dokie, go for
Thanks,
it.
Chair. And I'm okay in terms of question number 2. I'm okay with submitting all 5 proposals for PSU's final report.
And so you're saying you'll come back on October 18th with more narrowing? Okay. Any other commissioners?
I'm happy to chime in. Can we go back to the 5 maps, please?
You betcha. There you go.
Thank you. Why I have no comments, first of all, in regard to the public input. It's always great to receive it and I appreciate it. I know the staff did a lot of work to try to get the numbers that they got. It's always so difficult. So I compliment you on that, but I don't hardly think that that's indicative. I mean, 800 people out of 640,000 potential is probably not going to sway me a whole bunch. And I just say that up front. There are some proposals that I don't think are particularly to my liking, and I'll tell you which ones those are. I don't like 2B. I don't like 3. I think 5 is, I'm always going to be a little partial because whether we all like it or anybody else all likes it, there is going to be a time when the city urban planning area agreements are going to be probably a pretty big factor in how things are separated out. 4 is a good proposal as well. Why I don't really like 1 a whole bunch, to be honest, is that I said this at the very beginning when we started this process. I'm fairly open to any proposal. I don't have any big issues other than I think we need to correct the problem on District 2. We know we had a problem. We started out with a problem. I also would like to not parcel out the city of Hillsborough so badly. I don't think it's fair to them. And 3, more germane to the district I currently represent, is that the garden home really belongs with the rest of Beaverton, Raleigh Hills. That's where it's gonna, that area is all gonna go there. And so I like any proposal that takes those factors into consideration. So I keep getting down to 4 and 5. I would just add one more comment and I'll stop. And that is, you know, if I've gone District 2 wasn't growing so fast, we wouldn't have a problem. We just leave them alone, you know, and say, why are we going through all this? So it's too bad that we just couldn't figure out a way to take a little bit of 2 and kind of carve around the edges and make it less painful in terms of people thinking that there's some big change. But so I stop with that. That's my analysis.
Well, that future growth is coming your way to District 3 with River Terrace and King City, do UGB area.
But Commissioner Rogers, could I just ask a clarifying question? I think I heard you say that you were in favor of 4 and 5, not in favor of 2B and 3, but I still don't know, are you not determined on 1 or are you against 1?
The only thank you, Commissioner. The only problem I have with 1 is, again, our poor folks there in Garden Home and in that area are bifurcated. It's just not working so well. And so that's where I started out saying, if we could fix that, if we could fix the issue with District 2 spreading the the wealth. But I think the chair said it well, all of us. I think District 2 is going to continue to grow. And District 3 is going to explode. But so is Hillsborough a little bit. And the only one that was drawn in an interesting way was District 1. And that's because when Dick was on, he wanted to have it just a low in Beaverton, but that it doesn't work so well. I mean, so we're all kind of going around the edges of it. So anyway, thank you for asking the question, but that's a problem I have with 1. We still don't, and you heard it from residents, you're still separating out the Garden Home area into 2 different districts. And I don't think it's fair. I just think that they ought to be put together.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll go last if you want, as usual, and turn it over to you, Commissioner Willie, and Commissioner Treese.
Well, it's interesting to me. I guess I hadn't, I've been planning all along that I was going to go with the one that had the least amount of change, which would be number 1. Having heard Roy and Nafisa, I guess I'd respond to you. I don't think it's realistic that we send 5 back to PSU. We've already done that once. we're almost, sounds to me like we're almost hoping that PSU would make the change, make the decision for us. And I don't think that's where we're gonna go. I don't know what you would expect to get back from kicking them over to PSU. As a matter of fact, that's probably my question with any of them is if we give things, hand things back to PSU, what do we expect to get back? This is gonna be our decision. And I don't think we can subordinate that decision to PSU or anybody else. So I think we should make the decision.
Commissioner Willie, thank you. It is absolutely this board's decision. So the question, today is what do you want on your menu on October 18th? Do you want one option? Or do you want 5 options or 3 options?
Well, I understand that, but on
So-
October 18th, we're gonna have to make one decision.
Correct.
So I just
Correct.
assume, I mean, I don't see anything in here. We've got all the data, all the demographics, everything that we possibly need to make this decision from the standpoint of getting ahead of October 18th. And so I'm not a fan of sending hardly anything back to PSU, honestly. I'd kind of like to make this decision and move on with it. I think 600,000 people in Washington County don't care, quite frankly, for the most part, what district they're in. They want to know if their commissioner's doing what they want them to do. So anyway, I don't have a problem with 4 or 5, I guess. I don't understand necessarily why we would do that, but I think I'm gonna stick with my number 1 option.
Okay. Commissioner Treese.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to my fellow commissioners for your comments. That it helps me. I'd just like to point out in reviewing all of the data, what's surprising when you look at the demographic data and the financial data, that there aren't a whole lot of changes across the board, even on 3, when it looks like it's a dramatic geographic change. There isn't change in those 2 categories. Now, I understand that the purpose was rural versus urban, but I can tell you that I've looked at this a lot. I have my top 2, but what I'd like to recommend is that we consider thinking about the ones that we don't agree on, and then seeing if we can narrow it down to Commissioner Willie's point, what we send back. So my top 2, and with the understanding of what Commissioner Rogers pointed out for number 1 with Garden Home, I'm sensitive about that, like Commissioner Willie said, but my top 2 would be number 4 and number 1.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go next. Similarly, a lot of information to take in and looking at the detail maps, which illustrate our current districts and what let us know clearly what would change. What surprised me in looking at all this information that has been provided to us and slicing and dicing the charts from the public engagement information is how, even though each of these proposals is different, there are also incredible geographic similarities that I didn't quite expect. I didn't expect to really be intrigued by the urban and rural balance, option 3, so much. And 3, 4, and 5 have a lot of positive qualities. So where I've ended up is frankly having a top proposal of number 5. And why, you might ask, is because it has a great deal of geographic similarity with 1 and 4. but also leverages the qualities of the urban and rural balance, which I know we struggle with here on the board, but does also recognize the county's struggle with UUAs and therefore UPAAs. Because as we have been feeling very clearly these last 3 years, we are strained as a county to deliver on county-wide services, given our county-wide revenue.
Sorry,
And,
I'm just listening.
okay. And also be sensitive to the very real situation that we've been feeling of state mandates for counties as they have been occurring and as we can see them continuing to occur right through this next legislative session in 2023. I definitely have tossed number 1 out and number 4 out. For the same reasons that Commissioner Willie has talked about, or somebody talked about oh no, it was Commissioner Rogers that talked about not slicing and dicing the city of Hillsborough's not so much, and trying to address Garden Home. So that's where I was really focusing in on number 4 and number 5, because number 3 continues to have the Garden Home problem. And I didn't think, I just didn't find 2B as compelling of a change as the other ones. So so that is my thinking. I join Commissioners Willie and Rogers and Commissioner Treese in saying it doesn't make sense to keep all 5 on the table, if I can summarize it that way. What I wasn't sure from this meeting is if I wanted to move forward with multiple items or just land on one. And I'm really comfortable having looked at particularly in detail after this analysis 3, 4, and 5, and looking at the different qualities of each. We're not going to be able to avoid having the city of Beaverton split between District 1 and District 2. That's always going to be. We head off the reason why we created 2B, right? We saw the Garden Home version anyway. And so I'm sorry, I just feel like I'm repeating myself now, and I don't intend to do that.
May I ask a
Yes,
question?
absolutely.
So I'm learning in this process. I'm learned from the team here, but I'm learning from my fellow commissioners. And I think I'm hearing, Chair, you say the same thing I believe that I heard Commissioner Rogers say about number 5. Am I right about that in terms of moving toward, okay, and that increases my comfort level, frankly, with number 5. So I think I could go there too. It looks like district, but
You don't get to choose 3. You only get to choose 2.
well, it looks like, my understanding that number 5 certainly cuts that little dip into the north of 26 of District 2. That's Hillsborough, isn't that correct? Okay. So that, I just wanted to clarify that.
Mhm, mhm.
I thought we were leaning more towards 4, actually, because I thought I heard Catherine said 4 or 5. You said 4 or 1.
Well,
Roy
no,
said
I said
4 or
I
5.
wanted 5, but I spent time looking at the difference between 4 and 5.
Commissioner Fai, could I ask you if, I didn't hear if any of these give you heartburn?
Thank you, Commissioner Trees. So I'm in support of finalizing all of this in the report, but it sounds like we want to narrow it down. I'm okay with moving forward with proposal 1 and 4, if I had to pick. Those are my 2 choices. I think proposal 3 seemed problematic, as well as 5 and 2B. So I think for District 1, keeping communities together, and proposal 1 and 4 is my two top options. But as I understand it, Marnie, I'll go back to you one more last question. The 16th, when we come, it's a work session, is it correct?
The 18th.
The 18th.
And no, it's
The 18th, and it's a board meeting.
Board
It's a
meeting.
business meeting.
So either way, we're making a decision
Yeah.
and
And
they won't be coming to us with any new information.
Yeah, so I was just understanding that there's no new information. We're just finalizing this report. That's where I was like, well, let's include all 5 of them for the sake of knowledge and history transfer. But if we had to pick, I'll pick proposal 1 and 4.
I haven't heard, I heard you say that proposal 3 at least was problematic, but I don't know why.
Yeah, I think
Other than earlier you said you wanted to keep District 1 together.
yeah, it seemed like urban and rural balance seemed like the community was divided. I can go back in previous conversations, but work sessions, but they seemed, I don't think I have, yeah, proposal 1 and 4.
If I could just suggest to proposal 3 would actually put District 2 and District 4 in Colpack and Northwest Ag.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
I don't think, well, I just think that, let's just say I don't like number 3 for that reason.
Actually, also, one thing that would help me is your thoughts on how District 4 and 5 are different, because even though I said I was most comfortable with 4, I'm hearing support for excuse me, I misspoke. I was comfortable with number 5. I was more comfortable with 5 than 4. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on number 4. You know, Commissioner Trees, for example, you liked number 4, and what was it about number 4 that maybe you appreciated different than number 5 that I haven't quite picked up on yet?
Thank you. And I think, first of all, what I want to say is, before I answer your question.
Yeah, sure.
Is what I've learned today is that, I'm thinking about, this is not for right now. This is for the future. And this is for the next 10 years before we have another census.
Yep.
And I really hadn't been thinking about number 5 in the context that you and Commissioner Rogers were thinking of it. So from that context about what it means for our future in relationship to potential better usage of our dollars in relationship to our urban and unincorporated areas, that's becoming more attractive to me. Number 4, was attractive to me originally because I was looking at what types of continuity we wanted to continue.
Yeah.
So that's why number 4 and number 1 were more interesting to me. It seemed like proposal 3 was a really radical change. And I wasn't sure if I saw the value in the radical change there. And like I said, sorry to be I'm not being wishy-washy. I'm telling you, I'm learning here.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm leaning toward 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And that's,
I'm pretty much interchangeable between those two.
and if you could explain to me the benefit for the future of proposal 5 over proposal 4, I'd certainly willing to listen to that. And I guess I'm raising that with Commissioner Rogers and with the chair.
Commissioner, could I approach that first by
Sure.
virtue of a question? Oh, and I didn't mean to cut you off, Commissioner Rogers.
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
With number 4, Commissioner Willie, what does that mean for Colpack? Because it would still have.
No, that wouldn't make any change there. I mean, basically, Colpack is North Plains, west, sweeping down to Forest Grove and Cornelius, I think. I'm not sure where exactly Colpack's boundary. I think it's Guest, and I don't even think it includes.
So 4 and 5 each serve Colpack.
Right.
Fine.
Yeah. And
They don't impact Colpack.
That's what, yes.
yeah,
I'm
they do.
agreeing.
They do not.
Okay.
Right.
That's what I was trying to confirm.
I think the interesting thing to me is on 5 is where District 4 kind of swings down into. Yeah.
That's commissioners, just.
So that would put all of Hillsborough.
Can I interrupt?
Where's that?
Can you just talk into the microphone so we make sure audio? Thank you.
The question that Commissioner Willie was asking is where it swings down here. I was just clarifying that that's Hillsborough. That was the question that I asked earlier.
So District 5 picks up all of Hillsborough.
District 5?
I mean, District 4.
Oh.
You call it district. We have a new district already.
I have District 5, or at least so the parking lot says. That's the whole county.
Well, that's what I thought. We switched. So we're
So
just gonna go.
everybody has at least 2 commissioners already, okay?
Catherine has the entire county. We're gonna go on vacation. So am I correct though, Joe? I mean, it doesn't even have to be 100%. I'm just saying, is that why that part swings kind of east there in option 5 versus option 4?
You mean this little doojibby? This little doojibby?
This little thing right here
Oh,
versus
that-
this little thing right there.
Oh, okay. He's talking about this. And he was talking about.
Please.
He was talking about this, and this.
Okay.
That's what I say. I mean, it sounds to me like we have pretty much consensus for, if we're gonna put 2 forward, let's put 4 and 5 forward and we'll make the decision on the 18th.
But does that address Commissioner Fai's issues?
Questions over to you, Commissioner Fai, and also, what do you think, Commissioner Rogers?
Well, again, the problem I had with 1 and I have with 3, and I know I'm replowing ground here, but it's the,
We're in agreement with you.
yeah, that's the whole issue on that 1 and 3. The only difference between 4 and 5, one's community boundaries, one is the UPAA. And that's why, as I understood it, from those from PSU who are doing all of these calculations. It was simply to try to get the populations right. So I'm pretty agnostic about who you represent as long as it's a community. And so 4 or 5 to me are very logical. In both of them, they make sense. So that's where I'm at.
Let's do 4 and 5 and
Yeah, I guess 4
Commissioner
or 5
Fye,
is
it's
moving
over to you
forward.
now.
Yeah, it sounds like 4 and 5 is moving forward. My 2 top options, I would love to include this report is 1 and 4, but
I don't think you've got support for that. So at this juncture, we're going to proceed to October 18th with 4 and 5. And everybody needs to be prepared to pick one of those at the meeting on October 18th.
Could I ask a procedural question, Chair? And that is, at the board meeting, will we be presented with 4 and 5 and asked to vote at that time? Okay, and this follows the same quorum rules.
Yep.
As any other decision.
Yep, we're deliberating towards a decision, so
But we're
none of us.
deliberating publicly here, so we're
Yep.
okay. Okay,
Yep.
I'm just
we're public.
asking, so I know. Thank you.
well, I'd really like it to be unanimous. And so if there's some heartburn to either one of them, maybe, I don't know how we'd make that. I don't know how we'd communicate that before the 18th, but yeah, if there's some heartburn about 5 or 4, well, then I'd like to hear that and evaluate that, but I'd really like this to be unanimous.
I would chime in on that too. I agree. A piece of information that would be helpful from staff on both 4 and 5 is to come back and tell us what the subtle differences are and whether or not my understanding is correct, whether or not this is just an evening out of population. And so we can get into the more fine details. That's the only thing I'd be interested in. Is there fine details in there that we're missing on those 4 and 5? So if it's staff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Could it be a short discussion at the work session ahead of the board meeting on the 18th? So we have at least a time to share
That's a good idea.
heartburns.
Mhm.
I'll look to Ms. Angie and Mr. Carr, both from a scheduling and legal opinion standpoint.
What staff can do, similar to how in leadership updates, thumbs up on letters, what we can do is provide so that it's transparent to the community, to the difference between option 4 and 5 in a written memo, add that to the agenda packet to see if the board has any further questions on staff, but
I
not
would
scheduled
appreciate
for.
it being a set work session topic of sync up on question,
Okay,
not hidden in leadership updates.
okay, we can do that too. Yeah.
Mr. Carr.
So one of the parts of this process that I don't want you to lose sight of is that there's a public hearing on the second reading of the ordinance. And we could arrange it so that you could keep both options alive to the public hearing and then have a vote after the public hearing, if that's something that, so what we do is prepare 2 different ordinances. You'd pass both on first reading and then decide in November on which was the final one.
I think we've pretty much demonstrated that we've exhausted our community engagement and notification and don't really want to set ourselves up for a public hearing popularity contest.
Okay.
I went over that in my briefing with staff pretty judiciously as we each had briefings with staff. So that's why we wanted to make sure that we had enough time for robust discussion today in a public meeting.
I want to just thank the staff for all of this work, but I also want to thank my fellow commissioners for educating me and for the way we've walked through this. So
Yeah.
thank
Been
you.
an interesting process, really is. And you have done a great job, so thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay, that brings us to the end of our posted agenda. Do we have any other new developments to share in work session tonight? Or anything in advance of our board meeting that starts at 6:30? Nope. Well, Seeing nothing further, then I adjourn our work session. Thank you, everyone.
Open the executive session.